Hey guys, I promised I was going to continue reading on the actual read that I was doing last night. I'm sorry for the noise outside. Somebody looks like they have a dog or something. Well, we're going to continue here. Um, if I make a mistake, I ask you to excuse me. The letters are real small. So here we go. The human being is fundamentally a spiritual individual who carries with him the predestined mission of creating harmony and balance in nature. He is, therefore, the guardian of order in the realm of the invisible. But it is imperative, subordinated to his internal being, that it is personified in your consciousness. For this reason, they are the only ones who can act in all spheres of knowledge and manipulate the Newman forces. As beings with special privileges, humans have unique and non transferable gifts that they must cultivate through rites of passage to climb the sphere of consciousness until they reach full wisdom and become a venerable ancestor. However, let me see. Whoever does not exceed this expectation does not have another opportunity in his eternal repose of orphaned Jara to his lineage, because the ancestral link that unites them to the cosmos and to his lineage will be broken, and the Congo believe more specifically that their link to someone will be broken of his nine mythical ancestors. However, you will not remain in limbo or disappear, because in the Bakongo theology there is no room for nothingness or emptiness. You will simply be trapped in a lower level that I will call a state of inactive consciousness, which is the way of being in the world which is the way of being in the world of the invisible, but without the capacity to influence the visible world. Every individual fears not being remembered by someone, not being named again in the visible world. The fear of losing the communicative link with his peer pursues him throughout his transit through the earthly world, and this is essentially the reason that moves his thoughts and acts, becoming a great warrior, hunter, doctor, undertaker, an act of heroism for which he will be remembered, guarantees the community of his privileges as a spiritual being. Some people, however, can live both worlds because they have double vision. They are the Nganga and Kisi. The Bakongo perceives the visible universe and its invisible analogies as adjacent, united as an integrated whole, a general body of things that exist, interconnected by binding networks regardless of their physical nature, chemistry, or magic. Nothing exists in isolation, even if it is geographically distant or separated by time. Everyday events are bound by the memory and as such continues to exist. Once something has happened, it never stops happening, even if its invisible effects have disappeared. Natural experience and phenomena are a kind of infinite continuity principle that originally emanated from the creator in Sambian and from his extended and from him extended to the first founding ancestors of the Bakongo. They conceive nature as an interrelated environment between the minerals, plants, or animals that inhibit it, which of course includes the human being. This cosmic symbiosis is connected by different dimensions and united by the forces of the Nkisi. One of the basic concepts of the Bakongo Go refers to the harmonious unity of the cosmos and vibrant personality of nature. Everything vibrates in it, even if it is imperceivable to the human being. And this vibration is a form of communication language between all its components. Order and harmony prevail even in the apparent chaos of the universe, and this is because everything emanates from the source of life, which is Pungo, who, as the galactic center, exercises its will over the whole. The relationship between the visible and invisible things is preconceived in a harmonious and integrative way, and this condition is ensured by the ancestors and priests who are in charge of interpreting the rule that defines coexistence, daily life, and interaction. with the Inquisi, who, as said above, are bearers of the ancestral and infinite connection. The rules of society coexistence in general are always flexible, and their accommodations to a certain circumstance can even lead us to perceive it as arbitrary or antagonist, which for the Bakongo is nothing abnormal but simply an adoption that corrects the order of things and the events through the interpretation of the chiefs or priests authorized to do so. John Pascal Bachand, in his study Traditional African Cosmology and Dignity of the Human Person, expresses the imperative of unit is another of the basic principles of traditional African cosmology, in particular Bantu cosmology. Far from seeking the denial of personal autonomy, the principle of the imperative of unity arises from the notion of the human person perceived how to be a community. The same principle is motivated by the conviction that the dignity and happiness of the same human beings require that this condition of being united to himself, to the visible world, and to the invisible world be maintained. Before seeing some applications of the imperative of unit at the level of human beings, we will indicate some cosmological foundations of the same principle. One of the essential characteristics of Bantu cosmology is the absence of dualism, of contradiction in the cosmos. The entire cosmos is united. The entire cosmos is reconciled. This principle of unit, or the original community of the cosmos, plays at three different main levels. Intercosmic level, there is a unity between the invisible cosmos and the visible cosmos. That is, between the world of the spirit and the world of the non-spiritual being. Because of this relationship, what happens in one of these spheres has its effects on the other sphere. There is no secrecy between the two worlds. Intracosmic level, there is a unity within each of the two spheres of life. That is, the sphere of visible life and the sphere of invisible life. Regarding the invisible sphere in particular, there is a unity between human beings and nature with all its components. For example, animals, rivers, trees, jungles, stars, etc. Individual level, there is a unity within each member being of the invisible universe and the visible universe. In particular, within the human being, there is a union between his visible part and his invisible part. From the principle of original unit arises the obligation, particularly for the human being, to always maintain his unit with the entire cosmos and especially with the community of which he is a member. In fact, after having affirmed that the original nature of the cosmos is its unit, Bantu cosmologists proclaim that the balance, the proper function of the cosmos requires the preservation of the same unit. Therefore, the obligation to preserve his original unit with himself, with nature, and with the entire cosmos is imposed on the human being. Furthermore, the idea that all components of the cosmos, particularly human beings, reach their full development only when they unite, only when the unit of one with another is assured. The obligation to prevent any rupture of the original unit and to seek appropriate ways to maintain good relationship with all beings of the cosmos is also imposed on the same human being, invisible and visible. Finally, to give way to the core argument of this book, we must refer the reader to understand Bakongo philosophy and more in-depth analysis to the work of Dr. Fukia Bonseki, Cosmology of the Bantu Congo, where Bakongo concepts and theorizations that were essential contribution to the Palo Monte Mayombe, and that today we can find their traces in the traditions and rites of this religion in Cuba.